In this video, we're going to take a look at just a little issue that Steve is having, um, and in the process, explain a little bit more about some of the different choices you have with these buttons. So what we're going to do here is let's just go ahead and drag out a little square. Let's go ahead and right-click on SS16. That will change our stone size here, and the stone size drop down to 16s. If I right-click on 10, you can see that stone size changes. Right-click on 6. So it's really handy real quick to switch your stone size. Of course, you can come over here to the drop down and select one from the list. You could type in a particular stone size if you want to as well. So lots of flexibility there. But let's go ahead and add stones to our path there, which we've done. And you can see all these light up because we have a path of stones selected. If I select them, you can see because we have more than one path of stones. You see that? We have several paths. All these light up to tell us, hey, these buttons will now function. Some people were having issues not understanding when these buttons were available. So now if the condition's met, they're lit up in pink to tell us that the condition is met. Otherwise, they're not lit up. And so then we know that the condition is not met. So anyhow, we're going to delete our stone paths. And then we're going to come in here and choose Add Weed Box. But I want to show you something too in regards to Add Weed Box. If we right click, you see here it says AW. That is Add Weed Box. Now we do have the same function over here on Add Weed Box here. And likewise too, there is a right click function. Okay, the reason that we put the AW here at the bottom is because no matter on what tab we're on, the weed box is something we use a lot. So I wanted quick access to it. If we right click on Add Weed Box, we get a dialog box where we can specify a weed margin. Okay, so I have 25 specified. If we don't specify a weed margin, and by the way, that weed margin is specified in millimeters, there's 25.1 millimeters per inch, just for a little background. So I like to use a 1-inch border for my weed boxes. But so anyhow, we can specify the amount of the margin that we want to just by right-clicking on Add Weed Box, and that pops open that dialog box there. So that's kind of handy. The other thing I want to point out too, so if we go ahead and choose Add Weed Box, you can see it added a weed box to our design. Now, we can also, just for giggles, because believe it or not, I do this quite frequently, sometimes I want half that margin. So I'll just click on Shift Add Weed Box, Shift AW, and now you can see that the weed margin is half that distance. So if we don't specify a margin, then it's going to add a 1-inch margin by default. We could right click to specify a specific dimension for our margin. And likewise too, if we hit Shift Add Weed Box here, if we add Shift Add Weed Box here, it does half the specified weed box. So, you know, I don't know. Will you ever use it? Who knows? I don't know. But it's available to us, okay? So the other thing that we want to do is the next step in the process, of course, is simulating our rhinestones when we're creating a mock-up. So we'll go ahead and select our stones and then right-click on S here. You can see now this is one of the reasons why we have this function. This S button does quite a few different things. And let's just run through quickly what this S button actually does. If we select one stone here at the top and one stone here at the bottom by holding our Shift key, if we click S at this scenario, you can see what it's done. It's selected every stone in between. So if I give those a different color, you can see that's what it does. And that's quite useful. So you just, in a straight line, you need to pick up all those stones, and then you need to do something with them. You're able to do that very quickly. Quite useful to be able to do that. But that just kind of works in a straight line. Now, the other option that we have is if I draw a path. So I'm just going to actually just come in here and draw a path. So now I've drawn a path, and this particular path is in an L shape. Well, now when I click on S, it actually picks up those stones in an L shape. You can see there, all those blue stones are in L shape. And that's actually very, very, very useful. There's a lot of different situations where you need to pick up stones along a curve or in some kind of weird way, and by selecting stones by path, you have that option as well. So if we click on S with two objects, it selects everything in between. If we have a path selected and click on S, it selects every stone that intersects the path. If we select all of our stones and right click on S, then it simulates. And if we hold Shift and Control and Alt, it does nothing. I'm just teasing. So the thing of it is once you understand these multifunction buttons and what they do, and in the different scenarios you can use them, they're actually quite handy. You know, I use Easy Stone absolutely every day, so these buttons really come to me quite naturally. But I realize that most of you probably don't use the program every single day, and so it may be a little bit more cumbersome for you to remember all the different options for every single button. But at any rate, let's take a look at our next step. And of course, the next step is kind of a multi-step thing. You've created your design, you've simulated your stones. What's the next process? Well, the next step, of course, is to add our watermark and also add some dimensions to the design. So I'll go ahead and select the entire thing. I've selected my weed box and my design. And if I right click on MU, watch what happens. A watermark is already automatically created for us. And then the dimension is automatically put in for us as well. Now, part of the reason that we use this 1 inch, part of the reason that we use that 1 inch margin is so we can fit that dimension in there. So that's just a little hindsight. Now, the issue that Steve was having, the reason that we kind of created this whole video to begin with, the issue that Steve was having is this font is some type of odd font. It's defaulting to not to Arial. It's defaulting to something else. So we're going to explain why that is happening, and then of course we'll explain how to fix it as well. So let's go ahead, and I just want to show you something else too in regards to the MU button. MU stands for mockup. Okay, so if we want to actually put this on a sales presentation sheet, or we want to put this on a t-shirt mockup, we can click on MU, and that brings up the mockup tool that is in our Easy Prep plugin, which of course also comes with Easy Stone. And I won't get into that in great detail here, but I do want to explain that if we have a design, in fact, let's put in, now, just to give you an example, let's say that this circle is, we're going to cut this out of heat transfer vinyl. All right, when we select our design here, we have an option. If I hit Shift MU, we notice it gives us an option. It says there are vector objects selected other than rhinestones. Do you want to dimension the entire selection? If we say yes, then it's going to show us a dimension including that HTV circle. Okay. If we select everything again, of course, and hit Shift MU and say no, then it's just going to dimension our rhinestone design. Okay. So that's just, you know, just a little example there. If we select the entire design and Shift MU, you notice it adds a weed box and it adds the dimensions all in one shot. So Shift MU and right click MU basically have the same functionality. So that's just how that works. Now, let's talk about the issue that Steve is having. So what we're going to do is just give you a demonstration. We're going to grab our text tool here, and we're going to select a font, a bizarre font. You see it's called Chip Blocked. And if you read this carefully, it says, you are about to change the default object properties for objects created in the current document. All right, so I'm going to choose artistic text. So watch what happens now when I go to add dimensions. So if in fact we click on the stone use report here, and we also have that down here in SR, it brings up this dialog box, and we can choose this option to add dimensions as well. Okay, so when I choose add dimensions, watch what happens. You see the dimensions are added, but they're added in this goofy font. And that's the issue that Steve was having. Steve was actually having a rhinestone font and then having to go back up here and change it to something different. All right, which obviously, that's not preferable. So the way this Shift MU and the Stone Use Report add dimension function, the way it works is based on the current default font setting, whatever that is, the current default font setting. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our text tool and we're going to set this back to Arial. So now if I select my design and hit Stone Use Report and click on Add Dimensions, you can see we get back to our Arial font as being the default. Okay, so that's how to fix that. The other thing that would fix that is if we just close CorelDRAW and restarted it. And then, assuming that the default font for new documents is Arial, whatever the default font for new documents is, that's what you would get. So anyhow, that's how to fix that issue. And hopefully you learned a little bit more about what some of these buttons do. And thanks for watching.